everyone, I'm Jem McGrath, manager of the Water Care Division for Holland Home Leisure. I've put this video together to teach you all about how to prepare your pool water for closing, as well as how to winterize your pool and equipment. So feel free to take notes and contact us at Holland Home Leisure with any questions you have. The question I get asked the most is, when should I close my pool? The goal with winterizing your pool is to protect the pool and equipment from ice damage and do our best to prevent algae blooms, stains, or cloudy water from forming while the water is sitting still over the winter. So keep in mind, the warmer water gets, the faster bacteria, algae spores, and other organic matter can grow and thrive, especially in stagnant water, which uses up the sanitizer we are putting in much faster. So this can leave your pool vulnerable to algae blooms, even if you have the water properly treated prior to closing. So, for the best chance of keeping the pool water in great condition, close the pool as late as possible in the fall, usually mid to late October, and open the pool once the ice thaws in the spring, which sometimes can be mid to late April. During those times, keep an eye on the long-term forecast and plan for the best time that works for you. This is what we're trying to prevent. Algae blooms, they're expensive to treat, they take a lot of work and attention, and can sometimes take weeks to get your water back to sparkling clear, even with the best products treating the water. It cuts in on your valuable swimming time, so a little bit of attention in the fall will save time and money in the spring. I've broken this down to two sections. So first, I'll show you what's needed to prepare your pool water for closing, and then how to winterize the pool equipment, lines, and the pool structure. The first step in preparing your water is to balance it. Balancing the water is often overlooked when closing a pool. However, this is one of the most important times to ensure proper water balance to protect your liner and give the best performance of the products you'll be adding to prevent algae blooms. So bring a water sample in a clean plastic container here to us at Holland Home Leisure for one of our professionally trained staff to conduct an analysis and provide a personalized step-by-step guide on balancing the pH, total alkalinity, calcium, and other important water parameters. And did I mention this is always a free service for our customers? Yes, free. And the testing typically takes around 10 minutes, and then we can go through the results and answer any questions you may have. Okay, let's talk a bit more about balancing the water and why we're doing it. So apart from keeping your pool water sanitized with chlorine or bromine to protect swimmers, the next most important factor for the pool water is the pH. If the pH is low, the water is more acidic, which leads to chlorine dissipating much faster in the water. It can also corrode or etch surfaces and equipment because acidic water wants to dissolve stuff into it, which can lead to staining on the liner when you rebalance the pH. And acidic water is one of the leading causes of red itchy eyes for swimmers. On the other side of the scale, if the pH is too high, the water starts rejecting stuff that was once dissolved, meaning scale can easily form on surfaces and the water can appear cloudy. And again, the efficiency of the chlorine can be affected. Algae blooms can happen much easier with a high pH as well. Now, the recommended range for pH when we are using the pool is 7.4 to 7.6. However, when we're closing the pool, we want to aim closer to the 7.6 range. When water gets much colder, it can mimic the conditions of acidic water, which can lead to the same unwanted side effects like corrosion, etching, and staining. The next factor in water balance I'll talk about is the total alkalinity. So total alkalinity is often misunderstood, so I'm going to talk a little bit about it. The total alkalinity, what it is a measure of carbonates in the water that will help buffer or stabilize the pH. I often compare total alkalinity to like shock absorbers in your car. So with the alkalinity level balanced, you get much less movement in your pH. We just talked about how important it is to balance the pH prior to closing, so adjusting the total alkalinity level will directly affect how well the pH stays where we want it to over the winter months. Adjusting the calcium level in your pool water will help protect your liner over the winter. The water and calcium have a unique relationship. Water wants to have a certain amount of calcium dissolved into it. If there's not enough, the water can become aggressive on the surfaces it touches, looking for calcium to dissolve into it. So the water is touching the liner all winter, but does vinyl have calcium in it? Well, no, but that doesn't stop the water from trying to break down the vinyl looking for calcium, causing the liner to fade and become brittle. If the calcium level is too high, the water will reject it, not allowing it to become dissolved in the water, resulting in calcium coming out of solution and scaling on surfaces and causing the water to look cloudy. We will also test your pool for phosphates, and if that level is high, we'll recommend Dazzle Phos Cleanse Plus. Now, this removes the problem-causing inorganic compound orthophosphate to starve algae, reduce chlorine demand, improve water quality, and reduce scale formations. This can be poured into the water either before or after draining a portion of the water before closing. Now, the water may cloud a bit as it bonds with the phosphates, but this will settle on the floor over the winter, and that stuff can be vacuumed to waste in the spring. Now that you've balanced your pool water, you need to address any water quality issues you may have. I see this a lot when swimming season comes to an end. Pool care can sometimes get overlooked, which leads to a demand for chlorine, cloudy water, or even an algae bloom. The kids are going back to school, nights are cooler, and hot swimming days are few. Now, if a pool is closed green, guaranteed it will open greener in the spring. Algae spores can double every 24 hours. They're stubborn little things, so leaving the smallest bit of algae before closing means a huge cleanup in the spring. More severe algae blooms, they take much more chlorine to kill, and then once the algae is killed, we're left with all that dead algae that the filter needs to remove. I've seen severe cases of algae blooms take weeks to clear, even with the best water care products. So a little bit of work before closing the pool can save time and money when opening the following spring. We're also going to be treating the pool with a winter-grade shock and algicide, and if added to a green pool prior to closing, the products will be used up quickly, leaving the pool vulnerable for more algae to grow over the winter. Then check your chlorine levels. Prior to closing the pool, it is so important to ensure your free chlorine level is between 5 and 10 parts per million. The free chlorine is what the water will draw from to help keep the water clear and algae-free. A few days before closing, test your free chlorine level. If it's low, add a stockpile of chlorine pucks, sticks, or tabs. And keep testing that free chlorine. If you're still struggling to get to that 5 to 10 parts per million, add additional shock before your winter products. So achieving that magic number of 5 to 10 parts per million and being able to maintain it before closing is a major key in algae prevention over the winter. Remember how I just talked about the importance of balancing the water? Correct pH, total alkalinity, and stabilizer directly affects how efficient that chlorine will be for you. Now that you've tested and balanced your water, achieved a good chlorine level, always add your standard bi-weekly dose of Mineraluxe Oxygen and Mineraluxe Advanced Sticks prior to adding your winter products. Next, Prep Cleanse. It's a multi-formulated product that will help reduce phosphates in the water, plus add a powerful enzyme to deep cleanse the water prior to closing. Using Dazzle Prep Cleanse really increases the performance of the chlorine in your water, reducing the likelihood of an algae bloom during the off-season. This is added through the skimmer before draining a portion of the water. Now let's talk about the closing products. Dazzle Deluxe Pool Closing Kit includes Dazzle Ultra Shock and Dazzle Algae Resist 50 and Dazzle Stain and Scale Cleanse, and each kit will treat up to 80,000 liters of water. Not sure how much water you have in your pool? Just ask us. Ultrashock that comes in the closing kit is a highly concentrated chlorine-based shock treatment that can be added directly into the skimmer for easy application, or you could add it directly to the pool. Just remember to brush the floor behind it. Ultrashock is pH neutral, so it won't mess with your newly balanced water, and there's also built-in stain and scale inhibitors and clarifiers. If you end up closing your pool a bit early in the fall, add a secondary treatment of Ultrashock just prior to the water freezing to help keep the water clean and make spring cleanup much easier and less costly. Algae Resist 50 also comes in that closing kit. It comes in a small 500 ml bottle, but this little bottle of algaecide packs a lot of punch. Just one bottle can treat up to 80,000 liters of water and gives the best protection against an algae bloom while the pool is closed. Ideally, allow the water to circulate for at least 4 hours prior to closing the pool after you add it. You can also use Algae Clear 60 instead. The last bottle in this closing kit is Dazzle Stain and Scale Cleanse. This is added directly to the pool and again will help protect your liner. All right, so we've gone through prepping the water, we've treated the water. Next, let's get into the mechanics of closing the pool. The fun part, cleaning. So you've got to clean the pool. Vacuum debris, any leaves, bugs, or other organic matter. If they're left in the pool, they can consume chlorine faster and they can cause stains to form on your liner. Also, brush the walls and floor. Brushing often gets overlooked, but it is an integral part of removing any surface grime you may not be able to see. If you use a solar blanket, remove it from the pool, lay it out, and clean it with Dazzle Cover Cleanse. This cleaner is awesome. It has added tea tree oil for extra mildew prevention. So over the summer, your blanket can start to accumulate grime and chemical residue, and without a good clean before storing it, your solar blanket can start to degrade faster than needed. One of the great benefits of using this cleaner is that you can fold it up and store it wet after cleaning. So to use it, pour half the bottle directly onto the solar blanket, brush the blanket clean using your pool wall brush, rinse it with water, and then pour the other half of the bottle directly onto the blanket, fold it up wet. So a Rubbermaid garbage tote works great for storage or keep it in a high spot. Regardless of which type of filter you have on your pool, cleaning the filter media is an important step before closing the pool, but also as part of troubleshooting water quality issues you might see throughout the summer. So to maintain great looking water, we all know the importance of good water chemistry, but the filtration of the water is just as important. If you have a cartridge filter, rinsing the cartridge is needed throughout the season, of course, to remove large debris. However, oils, greases, and scale buildup cannot be removed simply by rinsing. Filter cleaners can stretch the fibers on the cartridge, allowing stubborn oil and scale to be removed. And as always, avoid using pressure washers on your cartridge, as the high pressure can damage the delicate fibers of the filter. If you have a sand filter, you can use the Rapid Action Filter Cleanse. And again, throughout the season, you clean the sand of large debris by backwashing your sand filter, but filter cleaners will strip each piece of sand of built up grease and scale that cannot be removed by backwashing. Always clean your filter prior to closing so the grime will not harden over the winter, making it much harder to clean in the spring. Now you're going to remove the ladder. In-ground pool ladders have rubber bumpers on the ends that kind of rest against the side of the pool wall. Check those for damage. If it's worn or cracked, replace them next spring prior to reinstalling the ladder to make sure it doesn't cut up your liner. If you have drop-in walk-in steps in either your above-ground or in-ground pool, here's the biggest tips I can give you. Once you know you're done swimming for the season, remove your walk-in steps. Now, to remove them, you have to go into the pool, and it's much easier to do so when the water isn't freezing cold. The next few sections I'm going to be focusing on in-ground pools. So if you have an above-ground pool, just sit back for a moment and I'll be right with you. So in grounds, you'll be draining a portion of the pool, and the goal is to have the water line 1 inch below the return jets. If your skimmer and main drain lines meet in front of the pump, like the picture shown, turn your valve to block off the skimmer line so water is just being pulled into the pump from the main drain. And with your sand filter on the drain or waste position, turn the pump on and the water will drain out your backwash line. If you have a cartridge filter, divert the water to go out your waste line. Disconnect the lines from your filter, and if you have a heater, disconnect the plumbing lines from that as well. Every return jet comes equipped with a lock ring and directional eyeball. The first picture shows how your return should look, and then you first remove the lock ring and eyeball, then you're left with the collar shown in the second picture. That collar needs to come out as well, and our blue winterizing wrench does a great job removing that collar. The last picture shows what the return jet should look like when you're done. And now we need to remove the water from the return lines. Using a wet dry shop vac or an air compressor, blow the water out of the return lines and then cap the return with a threaded yellow winter plug or the Hayward flush plug. And don't forget to use Teflon tape on the threads for a tight seal and easy removal in the spring. As you can see, that handy blue wrench can be used to tighten and remove that yellow plug. The benefit of using the white Hayward flush plug is getting a flatter surface and decreasing the risk of ice movement grabbing hold of anything sticking out and causing damage. It's almost impossible to remove all the water from the return lines, so protect your plumbing from ice damage by pouring non-toxic antifreeze into the return line using a flexible funnel or even a section of your vacuum hose. If you have a shutoff valve on that line, close the valve. If not, cap the return line with an expansion plug. The antifreeze that we have is a non-toxic antifreeze that provides the best protection on the market for pool lines and equipment. Not only will it mix with any water left in your lines to prevent it from freezing and causing damage, it has built-in lubricants and anti-corrosion properties to help protect gaskets, seals, and the surfaces of your equipment. It has a guaranteed burst protection to minus 45 degrees, so you can rest easy knowing our antifreeze is protecting your plumbing and equipment, even in the harshest Canadian winters. With the pump power off, disconnect the skimmer line from the front of the pump. Inside the skimmer, remove the skimmer basket and weir and store indoors. The weir is that little flapping door in the skimmer opening. From the skimmer line in front of the pump, blow as much water out of the skimmer line as you can using a wet-dry shop vac or air compressor. And close the valve in front of the pump or plug the skimmer line with an expansion plug. Next, pour our antifreeze into the skimmer line, plug the line with a gizmo, then pour some more antifreeze into the bottom of the skimmer. Now, use Dazzle's Surface Cleanse to clean the exposed liner and coping. This will remove grime and chemical buildup and prevent other organic matter from sticking on the liner when you refill. And this cleaner is also great to shine up your pump and filter, patio equipment, a whole bunch of other things. BioGuard's Pool Closing Complete does so many wonderful things for your water when closing. It protects the liner from corrosion or scale formation, protects the water line from buildup, plus uses powerful enzymes to break down organic wastes. Instead of using Pool Closing Complete, you could also use Dazzle Prep Cleanse and Dazzle Stain and Scale Cleanse to give you great protection from stains and scale. It removes phosphates to help protect against algae blooms and has powerful natural enzymes that digest organics, which helps to extend the life of the chlorine in the water. Okay, so let's talk for a minute about above ground pools. So above ground pools, you can use a sump pump to drain a portion of the pool, or you can use your manual vacuum to drain the water. Again, we're aiming for that 1 inch below the return jet. To use your manual vacuum to drain the pool, you hook up your vacuum into the skimmer like you normally would, but instead of using the regular filter position on your filter, use the waste position if you have the sand filter. If you have a cartridge filter, divert the water so it's going out your waste line. The biggest tip I can give you here is to put your garden hose in the skimmer, so once the water level in the pool drops below the skimmer opening, you'll still have water going to the skimmer to keep that seal strong on your vacuum hose. So basically the idea is the vacuum is hooked into the skimmer like it normally would. Your vacuum head is at the bottom of the pool and it's sucking the water from the bottom of the pool up into the skimmer and then out your waste line. Just like in-ground pool jets, above-ground pools have a return jet as well. Again, you'll remove the lock ring and eyeball, then you're left with the collar, of course shown in the second picture again. That collar needs to come out as well, and our blue Winterizing wrench does, again, a great job at removing that collar. The last picture shows what the return jet should look like when you are all done removing the pieces you need to. Plug the return jet with a Hayward flush plug. So if any external water enters the pool during the off-season, don't worry, your water level is okay to rise above the return line if it's plugged off. Alternatively, you can leave the return line open and let the water just simply drain out your hose. Inside your skimmer, remove the skimmer basket and weir and store them indoors. So again, the little weir is the flapping door on the inside of the skimmer. And then to winterize the skimmer, we suggest you place the cover back on, and that's it. Super easy. Now, if you're covering your pool with the ultimate winter cover, which I'll show you later on in this presentation, you do have to block off the skimmer opening with a piece of foam. Now, if you're unsure what type of cover you're going to be using, just ask. Disconnect the skimmer line in front of the pump, shown in the yellow circle there, and also disconnect your return line from the last piece of equipment the water will go through before going back into the pool, which is shown in the red circle there. It may be your filter, heater, or chlorinator, but really it is just the last piece of equipment your water is going to be going through before back to the pool. That's where we want to disconnect that hose. Ensure the end of those hoses are angled away from the pool, so if water displaces through the skimmer or the open return, we don't want any of that water pooling next to the pool, causing damage to the wall or bottom track if that pooling water freezes. Okay, now back to steps for both in-ground and above-ground pools. So your pump will have 1 or 2 drain plugs on the bottom depending on the model. We're going to remove the drain plugs, allow the water to drain out of the pump, and we're going to put a layer of magic lube on the drain plug's O-ring to help extend the life of that O-ring. Then we're going to put the drain plugs back in. Remove the pump basket and store that indoors. And then fill the pump with BioGuard's non-toxic antifreeze. Use magic lube on the pump cover O-ring and then put the cover back on. Now, even if you bring the pump inside for the winter, it's still very important to fill the pump with BioGuard's antifreeze to protect that mechanical seal that's keeping the wet end separate from the motor. If that mechanical seal dries out over the winter, it can cause water to seep into the motor and damage your pump. For sand filters, remove the drain plug from the bottom of the filter. Use magic lube on the drain plug's O-ring, and then leave the plug off completely for the winter and allow the water to drain out. If your filter is in a garage, shed, or pool house, attach a hose to the drain to direct the water outside so it doesn't flood inside. And using a flexible funnel, pour a small amount of BioGuard antifreeze into the filter head. This will make its way through the sand and collect in the bottom of the filter, protecting the delicate laterals from damage. Next, remove the pressure gauge, sight glass, and backwash hose and store those indoors. And then turn your filter dial valve to the winter position. If you do not have that position on your filter, set the dial between any 2 settings. This will keep the diverter on the inside up and prevent the gasket from sticking over time. Cartridge filters are similar to Winterize. Remove the drain plug, add a layer of magic lube on the drain plug O-ring, and allow the water to drain. Now, once the water is drained, you can put the drain plug back on. You're going to remove the inner cartridge, if you haven't taken that out already, and the pressure gauge, and store those indoors. You're going to add a layer of magic lube on the main O-ring. So the O-ring that's separating the top from the bottom of the cartridge filter. If the filter is properly drained, no antifreeze is needed inside the filter. If you have a chlorinator or a brominator like the one pictured here, remove the drain plug from the bottom of the chlorinator and allow the water to drain out. You're going to remove the cover and dispose of any unused chlorine or bromine. Clean the inside with hot water only to remove any residue. And this is very, very important. You do not want to use any cleaners or antifreeze in your chlorinator. The high concentrations of chlorine in your chlorinator or any residue left can react with cleaners, causing really harmful fumes. We're going to remove the O-ring from the cover and inspect that for damage. You're going to apply a layer of the magic lube on that O-ring and then reinstall the O-ring and put the cover back on. If you happen to have a solar heating system on your pool, simply disconnect the intake and outtake from the solar panels and allow the water to drain out. Use a wet dry shop vac to help get all the water out if needed, and if possible, you want to roll it up and store it indoors. If you have a heat pump, disconnect the plumbing at the intake and outtake. Place a layer of magic lube on the coupling O-rings. Then using a shop vac, blow the water out of the plumbing. Add BioGuard non-toxic antifreeze into your heat pump by pouring it into the top intake using a funnel. And as you do that, use a shop vac placed at the outtake and have that kind of suck the antifreeze through the system there. Once you're done, plug both lines using an expansion plug. If your heat pump is not in a shelter, we do recommend you cover it with a tarp for the winter. Use BioGuard's off the wall to clean the exposed liner. This will remove grime and chemical buildup and prevent other organic matter from sticking to the liner when you refill. Then you're going to want to ensure the main power to all pool equipment is turned off. So this includes your pump, heater, lights, if you have a self-chlorine generator, etc. Now you can install your winter cover. The two common choices for in-ground pools are the classic tarp with water bags holding in place, or more popular now is the secure cover. The standard tarp sits on the surface of the water, and we use water bags to hold the cover in place. The downside to the classic tarp is that the top of the cover will accumulate leaves and other debris, which will make for some work when removing the cover in the spring. The secure cover is a tight mesh, and it's taut, stretches taut, I should say, over the top of the pool, so leaves and other debris will just blow right off, which in the spring, it does make for a much easier spring cleanup. When installed properly, put it on a secure cover, you can actually walk on the cover, so there's peace of mind it gives you when you have kids or pets at home. So the downside to a secure cover is that the tight mesh will allow rainwater to go through, and so small organic matter will be introduced into the water, which can consume your chlorine or your bromine a little quicker. Now for covering an above-ground pool. The two common choices for above-ground pools are the classic tarp. This one has a cable and winch holding in place, or more popular now is a secure cover for an above-ground pool. Ours is called the ultimate cover. The standard tarp sits on the surface of the water. The downside, again, to the classic tarp is that you will accumulate a lot of stuff on top of that cover, which will make for a longer spring cleanup. Also, with the standard cover, if there's a lot of snow accumulating on top, it can put a bit of stress on the side walls of an above-ground pool. So if we get a winter with a lot of snowfall, keep in mind that you may need to shovel off some of the snow. So the secure cover, again, has a strip of the tight mesh just down the center of the pool. So water will go through, but leaves and other debris will just blow right off, again, making spring opening much easier. The downside to the ultimate cover, just like a secure cover for the in-ground pool, is that rainwater is allowed to go through. Again, it is introducing small organic matter to the pool water, which can consume chlorine in the water a bit faster. If you decide to use a cover that will allow debris or water to enter the pool, it is even more important to close the pool as late as possible in the fall and open it up as soon as the ice thaws in the spring. Well, that's it for closing the pool. I do want to mention that we are excited to once again offer Dazzle's Open Blue algae-free guarantee. So if you close your pool after September 15th, open your pool prior to May 15th the following year to clean water, we will provide the algae treatment products for free. Now, to qualify, you have to bring a sample to Holland Home Leisure prior to closing the pool, and of course, balance the water, follow our recommendations for closing products, and this guarantee only covers pools that are covered with a solid cover, so no external water is going into the pool. Well, folks, you made it. Thanks so much for learning how to close your pool with me. Like I'd mentioned at the beginning, if you have any questions about closing the pool yourself, we are available to answer any of those. Or after watching this video and you prefer maybe one of our experienced crews at Holland Home Leisure to close the pool for you, we certainly can. Feel free to give us a call for more info on our pool closing services. If you need any of the supplies I mentioned here in this presentation, of course, you could always get them in store or online at www.poolsuppliesnovascotia.pro. Thanks again.